We're going to be talking about understanding some common smartphone symbols you see. Normally at the top of your phone when you use it, you see some icons, but you might not really be sure what they mean or how they affect you. So that's what we're going to uncover today. So why do smartphone symbols matter? They provide quick status updates about your device's performance, settings, and also can help identify issues like weak signal, low battery, or missed notifications. If you realize that, let's say your internet is very slow, if you look at the icon kind of at the top, then you can tell if your internet is slow because let's say there's less signal or maybe it's a worse type of signal. So you can kind of pinpoint those issues. They also allow users to troubleshoot without opening settings menus and increase confidence in using and managing smartphone features. So in simple terms, smartphone symbols are very important. They're basically meant to simplify kind of understanding your phone and what different things that are happening on your phone. Sometimes they might be confusing, but we're gonna break that up. So where do symbols appear? Symbols usually appear at the status bar at the top of your phone. They show connectivity and power symbols. Notification Center displays recent messages and app alerts. The Control Center is something specific to iOS. Basically, if you swipe down from the left, or no, the right, if you swipe down from the right on your iPhone, you see kind of like a page of different controls. That's called the Control Center, just to let you know. Also, quick settings for Android. Both of them show toggles for common features. And some apps display their own symbols inside or next to the status bar. So Android versus iOS, there's a ton of differences, but we're kind of going to break it down. iOS symbols tend to be more minimal, while Androids may vary on brand. So just to break that down a bit more, basically Android is open source, like we've said before in other presentations. That means anyone can take Android off of the internet and they can edit that. So that means different companies like Samsung and OnePlus, for example, they may edit their symbols to look slightly different. So that's why Android is a bit more difficult to tell the symbols. Generally, they look somewhat similar, but basically Android phones have different skins or software layers. So that's why it's a bit harder to tell what an Android symbol is compared to an iOS symbol, iPhone symbol. Some icons are also exclusive to one system. So for example, iCloud on iOS, that's a symbol you're only going to see on iPhones since only iPhones or Apple devices have iCloud. Play Store on any Android, but you don't really have a Play Store on iOS. So there are some symbols that are different. There are also some symbols that are exclusive to one platform. Also, placement of status icons differs slightly between platforms. For example, on iPhone, maybe you'll see something like the Wi-Fi symbol at the like completely top right, but then on Android, you might see it somewhere else. So there is a difference in placement, but understanding both helps when switching or supporting others. Generally, there are differences. There are pretty big differences actually in icons, but I mean, as long as you understand like what an iPhone's icon looks like, you shouldn't have too much trouble switching to an Android. They look somewhat similar, even if they're slightly or stylistically different. So first one, probably the most important one out of the bunch, Wi-Fi symbol. It kind of looks like, I don't know what it looks like. It's supposed to resemble like a dot and then it has like antennas sending signal out. So I think that's what it's supposed to look like. Kind of think of it as maybe the top of a tree, for example, something that's extending out, maybe like layers of leaves. So again, for looking at these symbols, often if you just try to memorize the symbol, it's not going to work. Try to think of something that resembles that symbol, something that you see more often every day. So for Wi-Fi, probably just think of it as like the top of a tree. It kind of looks like that. I don't know if you guys can see the similarity. So a Wi-Fi symbol shows your current connection strength. The bars indicate signal quality. So if all 3 bars or 4 bars, whatever you have, are black, they're covered, that means you have the best signal available. The signal strength is strong. Now, there's a difference between signal strength and signal speed. Now, you could have a bad internet connection, let's say, something that's capped at a very low speed, but you can still have high signal strength. What the signal strength basically refers to is how close you are to the router and how well the connection is reaching you. So it doesn't really determine speed. It's more about really how much the signal is reaching you. So an exclamation point usually means connected but no internet. So sometimes you may be connected, like it may be receiving signal, but that signal isn't translated into an internet connection that's working. So usually if you see a symbol where you can see kind of like the Wi-Fi outline, but then you see an exclamation point in the middle, that means you have some sort of connection, but that's not really leading to any internet. So it's kind of a miss. It's like you're getting something, but you can't really use it. Tapping the icon in settings can also help you reconnect to troubleshoot. Often if you tap on it from the control center, again, when you swipe to the right on iPhones, you can basically tap or long press on that Wi-Fi icon. Then you can get an option to see like all of the different networks that are available. So basically, in essence, that's the Wi-Fi symbol. Shows the strength of your connection, not the speed, but basically how close you are. And an exclamation point in the middle means that you don't have a connection that's working. Bluetooth symbol. This is again pretty important to know. It appears when Bluetooth is turned on, even if no device is connected. So if you look on your phone, you might see something like this. You might see something a bit different, but generally in the same form factor. And sometimes it can change when a device is actively paired. So I think you might see this symbol, the one in the photo on the right, when there is no device connected, but then it might get darkened. Something you could see a visual change when something's connected, like headphones. And it can also indicate the battery level of connected accessories. This is for people who are using Android. I don't think iPhones do this, but sometimes on Android, right next to the Bluetooth icon, you basically see like a battery icon, and then it'll kind of show you how much it's filled up. I don't know how to describe it honestly. It's basically just a Bluetooth symbol and a battery symbol combined. You basically see it next to the Bluetooth icon, and that'll show you how much battery your connected device has. So not your phone, but the headphones or whatever you're connected to. It's also useful for wireless syncing, sharing, and hands-free use. So in summary, the Bluetooth symbol appears when your Bluetooth is on. Doesn't mean it's connected to anything. The option to connect to something is on. That's when the Bluetooth symbol just turns on. That's when you can see it. And it may change, may get darker, for example, when a device is connected. Airplane mode. This is pretty important what it does. And it's not only for planes, there's also other uses for this. So airplane mode basically turns off all wireless connections. Everything that's happening from somewhere else, where you're getting signal from somewhere else, it's turning off cell service. I think it might turn off Wi-Fi by default, but Wi-Fi will still work if you have a flight that has Wi-Fi. And also Bluetooth. Normally turns this stuff off. Really, the only thing that has to stay off is cellular, because cellular is basically coming from towers on the ground. So basically the problem why we need to turn on airplane mode, the signal that's coming from the ground, like the 4G or 5G cellular signal, that interferes with the plane's radio communication system. That's at least what's happened. Usually that doesn't happen, but just to be safe, you basically have to turn on this mode in flights. And that just prevents cellular connections from happening. So there's less of a risk of radio interference. So anyway, it turns this stuff off. It's often used to conserve battery. Sometimes if you turn all your wireless connections off, that means your phone is doing less background processes. So you can save battery. That's another use for turning on airplane mode, or just comply with airline rules. Another use for airplane mode that I can think of is, let's say you have like bad signal. Like if you have only one bar, we're going to talk about bars later for cellular, but maybe one bar of Wi-Fi or one line of cellular. So if you have something that's bad, if you have internet connections that's not working well, you can turn on airplane mode and also turn it off. And that's basically it's gonna make the device like search for connections again. So it'll help you reconnect. So basically if your internet's Wi-Fi, I don't know why I'm getting confused. If your device's Wi-Fi is bad, then you can turn on airplane mode, turn it off again, and your device is going to try to reconnect to internet. It still allows for offline apps to work, camera, and music. And you can manually re-enable Wi-Fi or Bluetooth while in airplane mode. So really the only thing that actually affects flights is the cellular connectivity from the towers on the ground. But Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, I don't know exactly why, but they're also turned off by default, but you can re-enable those with no problem. I think I was thinking about another airplane mode benefit. I don't think this is a good one to use. It's not a kind one for sure, but basically you can use airplane mode if there's a call that you don't want to like attend, I guess. If you're in a call and you want to like drop the call, but not tell the other person that you cut the call. Because you know, if you cut a call, it kind of like lets them know that you cut the call. You can turn on airplane mode and you can turn it off. It's gonna cut the call by default because there is no internet, but then it's not gonna tell the other person that you cut the call. So that's just a way to use it. I'm not like recommending that. That's probably not really nice, but yeah, that's something that I've heard of. So anyway, location or GPS symbol. On iPhones, you can see sort of like a little arrow, like a compass maybe, something like that. You can see it in the photo. It looks like a tiny little arrow. That basically indicates that an app or service is using your location. Now, there's different types of location tracking. There's something called, I think, precise location. That's when it actually knows like where you are to the, I think, a few feet, basically distance. It's really precise. There's also something called approximate location. Just the city or area that you live in, just the neighborhood maybe. So there's different types of location, but whatever location setting is, whatever location type is being used, you're gonna see this icon pop up. Now don't be worried, it might be from essential apps. You know, like Life 360. I don't know if everyone knows that. Maybe it's more US focused, but Life 360 or Find My. Find My is on pretty much every iPhone. So stuff like that, they're gonna use your location, not in a bad way. So if you see that, don't worry that it's being used in a bad way against you. It might be kind of scary if an app knows where you are all the time, but often these apps do have to know where you are just to show you like updated search results. So like Google, when you search something up, if they want to show you like local news, if you search up for local news, then they need to know your location to show you local news. So those are some of the uses. Basically, if you see an icon that looks like a marker on a map, maybe a compass, maybe an arrow, that basically means that your location is being used. Here are some battery symbols and charging icons. These ones actually vary a lot between different brands, even between like Google and OnePlus, like Google Pixel and I think OnePlus. I don't know what their phones are called exactly. OnePlus Nord, I think. That's one of their lineups. So even within specific lineups inside Android, for example, battery symbols can vary a lot. But generally, it'll kind of look like a closed cube with this semicircle sort of extending out on one side. And then it's going to show you another cube in the middle, and that one's going to be colored. So basically, that's how it works. You can see some examples over here. Um, basically, all of them have that big like cube surrounding it, the cube outline, and then the semicircle. That's kind of common. But then some of them might be colored differently. The color might also change based on how much battery you have. So a really common way to know how much battery you have, let's say like you have an eye problem, you can't really like see the percentage for some reason, then as long as you can see the color, honestly, if it's green, it probably means that you have a decent amount of battery left. More than 20%. 20% might seem like a really low number, especially depending on the phone. But if you have more than 20%, it's going to show you a green filler. And then if you have less than 20% on average, it's going to show you a red filler. And it's also going to be, it's not going to be extending out as much. It's not going to cover that outline as much, as you can see here. I don't know if I'm over explaining it, but basically there's a lot of different charging and battery icons, but a lot of them look similar. So at least you can tell. Battery percentage and color indicate the remaining power. A lightning bolt or plug symbol means the phone is charging. So you can see on the first one in the array of images we have here, that one has a lightning bolt. That means it's being charged actively. Yellow, orange, or red may signal low power mode is enabled. And red usually means that there's a really low battery percentage. So this is one thing that I didn't talk about, but if you see a yellow battery percentage, that just means that either low power mode was enabled by default or you manually enabled it. So don't worry if you see that. So do not disturb and focus modes. Focus modes are a bit more complex. I honestly don't use them that much, but I can talk about them. So they basically show when notifications, calls, and sounds are silenced. So on both iPhone and Android, you can set up something called a focus mode. And this basically, it can activate when you manually activate it. It can also activate based on location or time. So I'll give you an easy example to understand. Let's say you go to work and you don't want to get like random calls or random texts. Maybe you only want like really important text to show up on your phone because you don't want to be distracted during work. So you can basically set the focus to turn on when it detects your locations at work. And then from there, it's gonna cover all of the notifications that it thinks you don't need, whatever you set for it to cover up. And it's only gonna show you the stuff that you do need, what you set for it to show. So that's basically what a focus mode is. Like I said, focus modes on iOS allows for custom quiet settings. So like work or sleep. I think sleep, it does a bit more. You can get like background sounds playing on your phone, which is pretty cool. Again, I'm going off topic, but yeah. So that's how focus modes work. And they often appear as, at least sleep mode appears as a moon or minus sign in the status bar. There's also other stuff. Like for work, you might see a persona with maybe a tag, something like that. As you can see here, there's different modes and different icons. Generally, you also see text next to it, so you don't really have to worry about the icon that much. But modes help reduce distractions automatically. So it kind of makes sure that you're not distracted. They could be pretty useful. I usually think they aren't for me much, but they can be useful depending on who you are and how you use your phone. Alarm clock symbol. This is pretty self-explanatory. Appears in the top bar when an alarm is currently set. So it doesn't really tell you about when it's going off, but if an alarm is running, if it's gonna go off sometime in the near future, then it's gonna show you this alarm clock symbol. And it disappears once the alarm is dismissed or turned off. It's controlled from the clock app on both Android and iOS. So you guys probably know how to set alarms already. Go into the clock app on whatever phone you have and set an alarm from there. So if you set an alarm, you're gonna see this clock-like symbol. Don't get worried. That just means that there's an alarm present. So also, good tip that they gave: double check symbol before bed. You don't have to go to the clock app. I'm sometimes notorious for doing that. I go to the clock app just to see if I have a timer or alarm set. Instead, if you see that icon, that means there's something is set. You can't see the time that is set. You can't see more details, but at least you know something's set for whenever. So anyway, download and upload symbols. A download arrow is basically going to show you something going down. Basically, a download means going down. That's all you have to remember. So downward arrow is something's being downloaded onto your device. And an upward arrow means something's going from your device and is being uploaded into something else. So an example of a download, let's say you have, I don't have YouTube Premium, but some people have YouTube Premium. And in YouTube Premium, you can download videos. So you can watch those videos even when you're on a flight. If you don't have an internet connection, you can watch those. So you use that download symbol. You'll see that if you're downloading a video from YouTube, because it's going onto your device stored locally instead of on the cloud, on YouTube's cloud. Uploading, let's say you're a content creator, you make some videos. If you're uploading that video onto YouTube, then that's going to show you the upward icon. So just an easy way to remember that: down, down, up, up. Many flash or animate while transfer is in progress. An icon also disappears when the transfer is complete. So let's say it's showing you, it kind of like shows you a circle in a lot of devices. The circle is going to slowly get filled up around the edges. And once that gets filled up, the icon's going to disappear. So that means whatever you were downloading or uploading, that's been downloaded or uploaded already. Security and warning symbols. These are pretty important. Padlock means that there's a secure connection, encryption, or locked phone. The triangle with an exclamation mark means there's an error, warning, or update needed. I've actually never seen the triangle with an exclamation. Maybe I have, I'm just not recollecting it. Red alerts often require immediate attention. If something shows you a red alert, usually companies use colors. Colors are kind of the things that we can visualize the best. So if you see something red, it usually means that something is not that great on your phone, especially if it's like shining or popping, whatever it does. you can tap the symbol or check Notification Center for more info. So often, if there's a notification, if there's something important, then you can see that in the Notification Center. So it's not only based on the icon. The icon's just to let you know that something's bad, but you can also just go to your notifications and see it. So less common or confusing icons. Some of these might be a bit confusing. I do want to go on a little rant in just a little while about cell service, but anyway, NFC symbol indicates that contactless payments or tap to share is on. So let's say you have a phone, and on your phone you have a card. I don't know if a lot of you use this, I recommend you do, but you can load your credit or debit card onto your phone. Then you can tap your phone against whatever the cashiers have, the scanning system, and it's going to pay. Even though you don't have your physical card with you, you don't have to do like a swipe or anything. But basically the thing like transfers, the cash or whatever you're giving them transfers over. That's using your phone. It's using something called NFC. It's basically just like a protocol for contactless payments. So if you see that symbol, sort of looks like a Wi-Fi icon, but without the dot, then that just means that NFC is on. Don't worry about that; it's pretty much always on. So, screencast is smart view. Again, a lot of these icons look pretty similar. If you see a Wi-Fi symbol, but then it's kind of surrounded by a boxed outline, that can mean that you're screencasting. So you have your phone and you're casting information to your TV. That could mean that. VPN icon means that your internet traffic is encrypted or rerouted. And hotspot, TTY, and other icons, they kind of vary by phone model and settings. If you see an icon that you don't detect, again, just search it up or ask ChatGPT or something like that. Conclusion. Smartphone icons help you manage your device effectively. I know they can seem confusing, but honestly, the reason that we even have icons in the first place is kind of to make things easier. So you don't have to go into settings whenever you have a problem or whenever you want to change something. Knowing what each symbol means can reduce confusion and tech issues. Also, regularly check the status bar notifications also. So sometimes you might get, like, the Amber Alerts that beep. I don't think you get those in notification, not notification, but in the form of an icon. So if you are concerned about those, then it's better to check your notifications rather than your icons. Icons don't do everything, but for what they do, they're helpful as long as you understand them. And when in doubt, look up unfamiliar symbols. Again, like I said, I did want to say something really quick about cellular, like I said before. So there's really like 2 or 3 types of cellular, and don't worry, this released the icons in a pretty big way. You can have like 3G, 4G, and 5G. You can also have 2G, but 2G is kind of outdated by now. So anyway, you might see something called 5GE. And I don't know if this applies only if you're in the US. I know that AT&T sometimes likes to play these games, but 5GE is something that you might see in your icon status bar, basically at the top. 5GE does not actually mean 5G. 5GE is basically something that AT&T, the smartphone company, the ones that give you tower and the cell service, they basically created 5GE to kind of confuse people, to make it look like they're using a 5G network. 5GE actually stands for 5G evolution, and it's just 4G, but they just renamed 4G, the normal stuff that you use, in another way to make it seem more futuristic. So actually, I wanted to say this because my parents got confused with this. They thought they were on a 5G phone. They thought their old phone supported 5G because it said 5GE, but they were on an AT&T plan, and AT&T sometimes just says 5GE even when it's using 4G. That's kind of their branding to 4G, but of course they're doing it on purpose to confuse customers. So I think it's a shady business practice because especially like seniors, people who don't know what that icon means, they might just assume they're using the newest and the best, even if they're not.